July 2022. The case is being sent out on the 18th, so deliveries will be on the 19th, largely for this case. Local deliveries will be doing them on the 18th and 19th of July. And on Thursday, the 21st at 7 o'clock, we'll be doing the virtual tasting. And this is a really good case to get the virtual tasting. So even if you're not a member of Vini Curiosity, but are a member of the wine club, you still get the reduced prices for the tasting case. There's also a new wine club where we've sort of rejigged it a little bit, and I'll put the brochure into each one of your boxes, not because I want you to join again, but just so that you actually can see the entrance of the Piemonte case and a little bit more emphasis on the tasting cases as well. And this one especially, I think the Vini Curiosity virtual tasting is it's a really nice one in the small bottles, because these are fascinating wines. So yeah, if you're not a member of Vini Curiosity, this is just a great online wine tasting actually. And this one, well, they're all good, but this one I like especially. And the reason I like it, the main reason is the wines, of course. Now, kick off with the Iandolo Timorasso. Timorasso is the grape variety. It's now been recognized as the important white grape in Piemonte. It's high in acidity, it's got a slightly tannic grip. The most famous producer, Walter Massa, makes this remarkable wine where you have real feel and almost a visceral richness to the wine. But what I'd call that slight veil of tannins, which I always find a bit hard. And this particular wine, I tasted with Andrea from Villa Giada, now Dossio as well. And we just had this in a wine bar, and it was one of those where you look at the bottle, and it had been a long drive for us through some horrible weather, one of those drives where you think, I shouldn't have done that. But, you know, it had been a long drive, we got there safely, and we looked at the bottle and it was empty. Now, that doesn't usually happen with Timorasso. Usually with Timorasso, you're a bit more thoughtful, you know, it's quite a serious wine. This is a serious wine, but easy to drink as well, which I'm really excited by. So when I look at our Piemonte selection, to have a really good Erbaluce and a really good Timorasso, it's quite important. For me, they're the two most important varieties, followed by Arnese and then probably Cortesi at the end. And actually, even some of the Moscato is great. Matt's new vintage of his Italian oranges, tasting great. So in terms of Piemontese whites, some really fascinating wines coming through. And this one, Iandolo, this is his first ever wine, okay? So he's never made a wine under his own name before. So he rented the vineyard for this. It's old vines, classic area, and he's just renting a corner of a winery. And I think he's done a fantastic job. I'll tell you more about it during the tasting, but it's all stainless steel, so no wood, lots of lees stirring to get the richness. Fascinating wine. He's done an amazing job. He's from down in Avellino. You know some of the Cantina di Marisol guys. He's, you know, everything fits in. We're very excited. We're his first ever export. So, welcome Francesco. Great wine. And the second wine, or the second white wine, Cantina del Mare, another brand new producer for us, also never imported into the UK before. And Gennaro is a fascinating guy, okay? So he is down just north of Naples. When I say just north, he's within the metropolitan zone of Naples. So he's inside of the city region. In fact, the Giro d'Italia just cycled around Naples. And the little promontory he's on to the north, he went around there 3 times. And that made me a bit nervous because, okay, we found it hard enough to find him. You know, he's in a tiny street just backed away in the middle of nowhere. He's got vineyards. He's got 10 hectares of vineyards, and they're dotted all around. So, you know, he inherited it from the family. He'd gone off to America for 8 years. His pizza chef, it's the only tasting I've been to where we were given pizzas at the same time as tasting the wine. And it wasn't a problem. The wines are extraordinary. And you're tasting 3 of them in this tasting. So he makes from 2 varieties. So he makes from Falanghina and Piedirosso. Okay, so Falanghina is, I always think of it as number 3 in Campania, rightly or wrongly. So Greco is usually my number 1, then Fiano, and then usually Falanghina. And the reason why I've always put Falanghina at the bottom is because there's a lot of cheaper stuff that comes out of Sannio, the dock a little outside of the region, which is less exciting. But if you put it on volcanic rock and you reduce the yields, and you do it from old vines, which is exactly what we're doing here, you get that really salty, fresh mineraliness with tropical fruit. The quality is extraordinary. Really looking forward to it. And the two reds are, they're both Campo Flegrai, which is the dock which covers both the Falanghina and the Piede Rosso, and the Sorbo Rosso and the Terra del Padre, or del Padre. Terra del Padre is 100-year-old vines. This is an astonishing wine. Really is an astonishing wine. And it's got that. It's not a heavy wine, so it's not like Aglianico. So traditionally, you'll often find this blended in with the Aglianico, and it just sort of brings things down a bit. But it's a very elegant, very fresh. It's not a big wine, but really fascinating variety. So one vineyard, the Sorbo, that's sort of 40, 50-year-old vines. The other one's 100-year-old vines. I'll show you the images and things when we're doing the virtual tasting and go through the slideshow, but really astonishing. Beautiful red wine. Both from 2017, both reservas. So great wine. The other wine, which we've missed so far, well, there are two more, but one is Inarito. Inarito is Cecchi pasta, the ones with the blue top and the top. Good pasta. That family owns Inarito. Inarito, a high altitude Abruzzo. We went to visit them last year, beginning of this year, can't remember. Last year. And I bought the Cerasuolo. This is possibly the most expensive Cerasuolo I've ever bought. So Cerasuolo, made from Montepulciano in this case, and usually it's a light red, sometimes it's veering towards a rosé. I'm starting to give up a little bit on categorizing wine by its color. Do you think red wine? Some red wine's more purple, some's more blue, white wine, some's more gold, some's more green. Rosé, some is more pale, some is more like a light red. So this is closer to the light red than the pale. And it's a style I particularly like. I mean, honestly, I didn't buy very much. I don't expect to sell an enormous amount of Cerasuolo at this price. It's the most expensive Cerasuolo I've ever shipped. But the quality is extraordinary. And if you're going to have one bottle of Cerasuolo every few years, I wouldn't put you through too many of them. But if you're going to choose one, this is it. Brilliant wine. And they've been pottering out the warehouse already. So I'm quite excited about it. It's very good wine indeed. And the last one, Le Cinciole, Chianti Classico Gran Selezione 2016. So the 2016, one of the legendary vintages in the last decade. I mean, it's fantastic vintage. And it's the first ever Gran Selezione that Luca's made. He didn't get behind Gran Selezione in the early days. The rules were a bit lax, and perhaps it was created more as a slightly cynical way of making more money than as a serious standalone wine. Because really the idea behind Gran Selezione is to take a Riserva and beef it up a little bit, make it a bit more single vineyard, make it a bit more expressive, make it the wine of the estate. This is the best wine we can make. And that's starting to happen now. So Luca's actually fully behind it now. And this is the first one, and what a wine to come in with. This is an extraordinary wine. And actually still, I think, very good value as well, actually. It's excellent. So to recap, we have the tasting on July the 21st, 7 o'clock. And that's the small bottle one, which you can still buy if you want. You can buy the case if you want. We've still got a few spares. The wines will go out at the beginning of that week, so that everything arrives together with your notes as usual in the new folders. Everything's lovely. And the information on the new Piemonte case, which I'm very excited about because it's pandering to my love of Nebbiolo, which basically we found we'd bought too many, and we were probably filling up your Vini Curiosity case with a few too many Nebbiolos, which I don't believe is possible. You can't have too much Nebbiolo. But Vini Curiosity, the idea of it is to satisfy a curiosity in Italian wines, and this case does exactly that. This case is so Ooh, it's a curious case, fantastic. Anyway, so the wines are going into it. Yandelo's Timorasso, Cantina del Mare, their Falangina, and 2 of their Piedi Rossos, Cerasuolo from Inalto. Oh, very, very excited. And the pillar of excellence, the Chianti Classico Gran Reserva 2016 from Le Cinciole. Honestly, there's nothing not to love in this case.